Good evening, this is Daniel, minus the beard this time, and today we are answering a quick support question. So the question is about, can automaton vehicle do things like calipers on the wheels? This is because the caliper will move with the wheel object but not spin like a wheel. The caliper will remain fixed to the axle. And the answer is yes, you can. So I have already prepared a little bit this vehicle model. So what I have done is just parented a few things. So for example, I have basically 9 objects here that you can see in the outliner. And the first object will be the car body. If I open up or expand the car body object, you will see that there's a lot of child objects. So basically, this is related to things like the headlights and the inner parts and so on. So basically, everything moves with the body object. I have done the same for the wheels. So for example, this tire rubber front right object is also carrying things like the rim and also the disc brake. Because this is how a car works. The disc will be stuck to the rim and the caliper will not be stuck to the rim, but the caliper will be independent so that it can brake or grab the disc object. So I have exactly done that with the caliper object. So for example, if I go ahead and select the caliper object front right, you see that it's also independent. I can go ahead and test this by going into the numeric panel and rotating the wheel. And you see that the caliper will not rotate or not spin. This is exactly what we want. Another very important thing is if you check the pivot of the wheel, it's positioned correctly, and I encourage you to watch my previous tutorials to understand how to position the origin, which is very important for automaton vehicle. And the important thing here is that the caliper is also sharing the same pivot position. So if I select the tire and then I select the caliper object, you see that the pivot is in the same position. So this is quite important. Okay, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and select all 9 objects. So 4 wheels, 4 calipers, and the body object. As a general rule, I like to select at last the body object so that it is the active object when enabling the automaton vehicle. So let's do that. And now create automaton. Okay. And now let's start by just adding a quick path object to it so that we can test our rig. So as you probably know, the body object needs to be translate enabled. So we select the body object and click translate, and we can go ahead and start testing our system by playing around with the travel distance value. Let's switch to the workbench render engine, which should be much faster, and maybe select random so that we can visualize the different objects. Okay, so now let's set the wheels. So we select the back right wheel and enable translate and spinning. We do the same for the other back wheel. And for the front wheels, we enable translate, spinning, and steering, of course. As you can see, I haven't enabled suspension, so the suspension system is disabled for automaton rigs that do not feature a terrain object. So we haven't done the terrain for now, so you cannot actually enable the suspension system on the wheels. But that's all right because we don't need it until then. So let's play around with the travel distance, and this is what we expect. The wheels just spin and steer correctly. So for the calipers, we do almost the same as the wheels, except we will not want to enable spinning. So for example, we go ahead and hit translate and spin, sorry, not spin. So for the back wheels, just translate. And then same here. And for the front caliper, we will enable translate, but if we go ahead and take a quick look, you will see that we also need the steering effect to take place. So if I enable steering, it will fall into place. So again, translate and enable steering, because the front caliper needs to steer with the wheel, just not spin. So if we check again on the travel distance, we see that the calipers are doing exactly what we want them to do. Okay, but let's now enable a terrain. So we can create a new terrain with the automatic button, and maybe this is kind of dramatic for a this vehicle is not a 4x4, so it's kind of too much. I mean, it works, but let's actually leave it like that for now, just to make everything really clear. So now that we have a terrain system, the wheels are currently acting like there's like a fixed axle with no suspension system in the vehicle. So let's just fix that by enabling suspension in the four wheels. So you see that when I enable suspension, each individual wheel matches the terrain exactly because the suspension system allows them to make perfect contact. You see? And the last one. Okay. But now you may have noticed that when I enable the suspension, now the caliper has a problem. The caliper is also has a slight offset, right? So obviously, all I need to do is enable suspension for the caliper, or not. So what happened here? Let's just enable suspension for caliper objects, like that, and just ignore the problem for now. We will get right back to it. Okay, so what's happening is that normally the wheels worked perfectly out of the box because the automaton vehicle system was able to calculate the correct wheel diameter. And this is because the object is the wheel, right? So the wheel diameter of this object matches perfectly. It's actually the wheel. So we have a diameter of 0.69. And if I go ahead and check on the caliper, it's giving me an automatic wheel diameter of 0.19 meters, right? So this is obviously incorrect. So what I have to do is copy the correct wheel diameter from a wheel with Control-C over the value, then go back to the caliper object, disable the automatic calculation, which is right now giving us an incorrect result, and just Control-V for paste the correct wheel diameter. And let's just do this for all the wheels. So disable the automatic calculation and paste the correct expected wheel diameter. Okay, and we have actually finished. So if I go ahead and test the system with the travel distance slider, you will see that now the calipers follow along perfectly, even with the suspension and the crazy terrain happening. I hope that makes sense. Again, I really encourage you to watch my previous tutorials that are covering more of the setup and the basics of automaton vehicle. Okay, have a good day.